You say you're fine. You smile when people ask how you are. You nod. You laugh. You function. You even do the work. You journal. You meditate. You read books about healing. You say the right things. You look the part. And yet, when the noise fades, when you're finally alone, something inside you whispers, "This isn't it." It's not pain exactly. It's not despair, but it's not peace either. It's a hollowness that doesn't speak in words, only in silence. A quiet echo in your chest that says, something is missing. You try to explain it, but it slips away. You try to feel something, but it's numb. You try to keep going, but even joy feels distant. You are not broken. You are not failing. You are not lost. You are exhausted. Not in body, but in soul. You are tired of pretending, tired of performing, tired of smiling through your own disconnection. Carl Jung once said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. We avoid through distractions. We avoid through achievement. We avoid by being fine. But healing doesn't happen in the avoidance. It doesn't happen when everything is okay on the outside, but abandoned on the inside. It doesn't happen when you go through the motions with a locked heart. Healing begins when you stop running, when you stop trying to outpace the ache, when you finally sit still long enough to hear what the silence has been trying to say. And what if that emptiness isn't failure, but the beginning of something sacred? What if your numbness isn't a dead end, but a doorway? A soft, quiet knock from your soul, saying, "I'm still here. Will you come back?" Let's begin there, not with striving, not with fixing, but with remembering. Not who you were told to be, but who you were before you learned to disappear. You stopped crying. You stopped breaking down in the shower. You stopped feeling like you were on the edge. You stopped shaking when you heard that name, when you remembered that night when you passed by that place. You stopped, and you thought that meant you were healing. But peace isn't the absence of pain, and healing isn't the absence of emotion. There is a kind of numbness that feels like calm, but it's not calm, it's collapse. It's the body shutting down. It's the nervous system stuck in freeze mode. It's the soul curled into a corner, whispering it's not safe to feel. Carl Jung didn't just study the unconscious, he lived there. He taught that the parts of us we push away don't die. They wait. They wait in the shadow, in silence, in stillness, in subtle symptoms. They wait until we're strong enough, brave enough, tender enough to return to them. And while they wait, our bodies grow heavy, our breath shallows, our laughter dims. We may look stable, but inside we're holding our breath. You can live like this for years. You can build an entire identity around being composed, around being functional, around being fine. But fine is often a form of self-abandonment. It's the version of you who chose safety over truth, silence over expression, numbness over vulnerability. And maybe that was wise for a time. Maybe that numbness saved you when the pain was too much to bear. Maybe it protected your spirit when the world was too loud, too violent, too indifferent. But now, you're still here, and the protection that once saved you is now the prison that holds you. There is a quiet kind of suffering in being numb, because no one sees it, no one checks in, no one says, "Are you okay?" when everything looks fine on the outside. You stop being the crisis, you start being the example, the stable one, the strong one. But inside you feel like a ghost in your own life. Not because something is broken, but because too many things have been buried. True healing doesn't begin when you feel better. It begins when you feel again. When you notice the lump in your throat. When you feel the tears sting your eyes. When you allow yourself to feel rage without apology. When you let grief move through your chest like a storm, not to destroy you, but to cleanse what's been held too long. So if you're feeling flat, if everything is just okay, If you can't remember the last time you felt truly alive, that's not healing. That's a soul calling you back to life, not through fixing, not through forcing, but through one courageous act. Feeling. Just one real feeling. It can be sorrow, it can be longing, it can be joy, but let it be real. Because peace doesn't come from silence, it comes from truth. And numbness is not truth, it's a placeholder. It's where your soul waits until you're ready to come home. You wake up, you get dressed, you smile in the mirror, you leave the house with your head held high, you respond to messages with warmth, you say the right things, you show up, and everyone thinks you're doing great. They call you strong, they say you're resilient, they admire how well you've held it together. But what they don't see is that you're holding your breath through all of it. Because what they're admiring is not you, it's your mask. Carl Jung called it the persona, the social face we wear to navigate the world, to be accepted, to be liked, to be safe. And in a world that rewards image over essence, the persona can become seductive. It gets results, it gets praise, it keeps us from having to reveal what's really going on inside. But over time, the mask starts to stick. You forget where it ends, and you begin. You wake up one day and realize you're not playing a role, you are the role. You've become the version of yourself that was easiest for others to accept. And in doing so, you lost the version of yourself that was most true. You didn't mean to abandon her, that raw, tender, emotional, vibrant self. She just didn't fit. She was too loud, too soft, too complicated, too honest. So you quieted her, you protected her, you buried her beneath ambition, accomplishment, a calm exterior, and she's still there, waiting. The world applauds your strength, but doesn't ask what it's costing you. No one sees the effort it takes to maintain the illusion, the way your jaw tightens to hold back emotion, the way your shoulders rise to absorb every weight silently, the way your heart longs to be seen, not praised, but understood. You wonder if anyone will ever love what's behind the mask. And more hauntingly, you wonder if you even know anymore. But healing, real healing, is not found in becoming more polished. It's found in becoming more real. It's the moment you sit in front of someone and let the mask slip, even just a little. It's the moment you cry, not because you're breaking, but because you're finally telling the truth. It's the moment you whisper, "I'm not okay." And no one runs away, especially not you. You are allowed to be messy. You are allowed to be unsure. You are allowed to be too much. You are allowed to take up space without earning it. The persona may have kept you safe, but it cannot make you whole, and you don't have to keep pretending. Because the ones who truly love you are not waiting to meet the version of you you've perfected. They are longing to meet the version of you you've been hiding. And so are you. You light a candle. You sit cross-legged on the floor. You breathe in peace. You exhale the past. You whisper affirmations into the stillness. I am healed. I am whole. I am love. And yet something inside still trembles. Something deep, old, hidden stirs beneath the stillness. You try to calm it with a mantra. You try to love it away. You try to release it. But it won't go. Because what you're feeling is not something to be released. It's something to be felt. This is the quiet trap of healing. You've done the work. You've read the books. You've saged the house. You've written in your journal every day for a year. But underneath it all, you're still afraid to feel, still afraid to fall apart, still afraid to rage, still afraid to say out loud, "I'm not okay." And so healing becomes a performance. Pain gets spiritualized, anger gets reframed, grief gets skipped. You've turned your healing into a mask. Carl Jung warned of this. He said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." In other words, you cannot bypass your shadow with light. You cannot meditate away the truth. You cannot affirmation your way out of trauma. You cannot talk about surrender when you're still clenched inside. There's a difference between peace and suppression, between clarity and avoidance. And many of us mistake control for healing. We say we've moved on when really we've just dissociated. We say we've forgiven when really we've forgotten how to feel. We say we've transcended when really we're terrified of breaking down. But healing doesn't come from rising above. It comes from going within. It comes from descending into the wound and holding it with love, not judgment. There's a moment in every healing journey when the spiritual tools stop working. Not because they're wrong, but because you've used them to escape instead of connect. That's when the real work begins, not in the light, but in the darkness. In the moment you stop trying to fix and start learning to feel. In the moment you stop asking, how do I get rid of this? And instead ask, what does this part of me need? Because pain is not your enemy, it's your messenger. And if you sit with it long enough, it might tell you the very truth you've been searching for in every book, every quote, every practice. You don't need to be more spiritual. You need to be more honest. You don't need to clear your energy. You need to hold it. You don't need to find the light. You need to love the dark. Because that's where your healing lives. Not in bypassing your humanity, but in embracing it completely. You don't always know you're running. Sometimes it looks like success. Sometimes it looks like productivity. Sometimes it looks like being the strong one. It's not always frantic. It's not always panicked. Sometimes it's quiet, calculated, polished. You say the right things, do the right work, build the right image, and no one can tell you're exhausted inside. Because the thing you've been running from isn't out there. It's inside. Maybe it's the pain you never got to process. The grief you told yourself to move past. The story you swore didn't matter anymore. The memory that still burns behind your smile. Maybe it's the truth that you're tired of being strong, that you never learned how to ask for help, that you don't really know who you are without the coping mechanisms. And it's not your fault. The world taught you that survival looks like silence, looks like control, looks like achievement. But survival is not the same as healing. And at some point, you reach the edge of performance. One day, you wake up, and you can't pretend anymore. You sit on the edge of your bed, and everything feels heavy. Not dramatic, not loud, just done. The mask doesn't fit anymore. The hustle doesn't soothe. The spiritual quotes don't land. The work no longer fills the void. And for the first time, you're not looking away. You're not trying to run. You're not seeking distraction. You're just there, with it, with yourself, with the ache. Carl Jung wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." And the moment you stop running is the moment you begin to see what's truly driving you. You realize that beneath the exhaustion is a wound, and beneath the wound is a need, and beneath the need is a story that deserves to be heard. This is where healing begins. Not in the light, but in the pause, in the trembling moment of surrender, in the breath you didn't know you were holding. You don't have to solve it. You don't have to conquer it. You just have to stay with it. Stay when it's uncomfortable. Stay when it makes no sense. Stay when your first instinct is to run. Because staying is the most radical act of healing. It tells your soul, I won't abandon you anymore. And slowly, gently, painfully, you begin to come home. To your body, to your truth, to the version of you that was never broken, just buried under the running. There's a part of you you try not to think about. Not because you hate it, but because it scares you. Because if you really looked at it, if you really listened to it, you're afraid it might unravel everything you've built. You've spent years curating a version of yourself, polished, calm, responsible, loving. And then one day something happens, and suddenly you snap. You say something sharp. You feel something ugly. You do something unrecognizable. And afterward, you whisper, "That wasn't me." But what if it was? Carl Jung called this the shadow. Shadow. Not because it's evil, but because it lives in the dark. The shadow isn't your worst self, it's your unseen self. It's made of everything you were told was too much. Too angry, too loud, too needy, too sensitive, too wild. So you exiled it. You disowned it. You locked it in the basement of your psyche and pretended it didn't exist. But the shadow doesn't die. It waits, and it leaks. It shows up in jealousy you can't explain, in bitterness you try to suppress, in dreams that feel like confessions, in the voice that says you're faking it and you know it. We all have a shadow. It holds not just our wounds, but our power, not just our rage, but our passion, not just our fear, but our truth. And the longer we deny it, the more it controls us. Jung warned, when an inner situation is not made conscious, it appears outside as fate. In other words, what you avoid internally becomes your reality externally. So what does it mean to do shadow work? It means telling the truth about your hidden parts. It means looking at the aspects of yourself you were taught to hate and learning to listen instead. It's sitting with the grief you weren't allowed to show. It's holding space for the anger you thought would destroy you. It's letting the version of you that never got to speak finally have a voice. And when you do, something extraordinary happens. You don't become darker, you become whole. Because the shadow isn't trying to sabotage you, it's trying to reintegrate you, to bring back the parts of your soul you thought you had to leave behind to be loved. But you don't have to choose anymore. You don't have to be one version in public and another in private. You get to be both. You get to be real. You get to be whole. And when you welcome the shadow in not to dominate but to integrate, you finally stop the war within, and you remember you were never too much. You were never wrong. You were never broken. You were just split in two to survive. And now, you get to come back together. There's a moment in every healing journey where everything feels worse before it feels better. You thought healing would feel like lightness, like relief, like peace, but instead it feels like fire. Everything you buried begins to rise. Memories you forgot, feelings you suppressed, truths you couldn't handle until now. And suddenly you're not rising, you're unraveling. You cry for no reason. You rage at small things. You wake up in panic, unsure who you are anymore. This is the fire. Not because you're failing, but because you're finally feeling. Carl Jung said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain, because healing isn't about fixing, it's about remembering. And when you remember what was lost, what was abandoned, what was hidden, it hurts. But the fire isn't here to destroy you, it's here to refine you. Think of it like this. When metal is placed in fire, it loses its shape. It melts. It surrenders form. And in doing so, it becomes malleable. It becomes pure. You are the metal. The fire is your truth. And when you sit in it, when you stop trying to run, to escape, to numb, you begin to transform. You begin to reshape not who you are, but who you've always been underneath the conditioning. This is not easy work. It's the hardest thing you'll ever do, because the pain you've been avoiding for years will ask to be held. The shame you've been silencing will ask to be witnessed. The grief you've been burying will ask to move through you. You will shake, you will sob, you will feel like you're falling apart, but you're not. You're burning through what no longer belongs. There's a strength in you that you forgot you had, not the kind that pushes through, but the kind that stays present in the storm. That says I'm not okay, but I'm not leaving myself this time. That holds your own hand through the fire, because this time you're not abandoning yourself. And when the fire passes, as it always does, you'll find something new in the ashes. Not a better version of you, but a truer one. The one who no longer needs to pretend. The one who's earned their own presence. The one who knows that even in the flames, they are worthy of love, especially from themselves. There's something quiet that happens after the fire. It's not dramatic. It's not loud. It's not the triumphant "I did it" moment you might expect. It's subtle. You wake up one day and realize you're no longer afraid of your own truth. You're no longer hiding from your past. You're no longer ashamed of your softness. You're no longer at war with your emotions. You feel here, present, alive, whole. Carl Jung didn't speak about perfection. He spoke about integration. He knew that healing doesn't mean becoming something new. It means reuniting with what's already inside you. The wounded child, the wild heart, the silent grief, the lost joy. Every part you thought you had to exile is still waiting for you. And when you return to them, when you say, "I won't leave you behind," you become whole. This isn't the kind of healing that gets applause. It's not glamorous. It's not easy to explain, but it changes everything. You stop hustling for worth. You stop proving your value. You stop performing strength, because you no longer need to. You know who you are. You remember what you've been through. You honor what it took to survive. You forgive the version of you that didn't know better. And you begin to live from a deeper place, not a place of image, but a place of integrity. Not a place of fear, but a place of truth. You may still feel pain. You may still have bad days. You may still fall apart sometimes, but now you don't abandon yourself when it happens. You don't run. You don't numb. You stay. And in staying, you prove to your own nervous system, "I'm not a danger to myself anymore." You become your own anchor, your own witness, your own home. This is what it means to return to wholeness. It's not about getting everything right. It's about being with everything without shame. It's about holding your own complexity with grace. And it's about looking in the mirror, not to perfect what you see, but to recognize it. To whisper to your reflection, "I see you. And I finally remember who you are." What if healing isn't about becoming someone new, but finally allowing yourself to be who you've always been? Not the edited version, not the spiritual version, not the version that pleases everyone, but the one that's been underneath it all from the beginning. The one who felt deeply. The one who asked too many questions. The one who laughed too loudly, cried too easily, loved too wildly. The one who didn't know how to perform. The one who didn't know they were too much until someone told them so. Carl Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But what if becoming is simply remembering? Remembering the self you were before you began cutting parts of yourself off to survive, to belong, to be loved. Healing is not a journey of addition, it's a journey of return. You return to your voice, the one you silenced, the one you softened, the one you traded for acceptance. You return to your truth, the one that made others uncomfortable, the one that cost you connection, the one you buried because it was inconvenient. You return to your soul, the one that whispered beneath the noise, the one that knew things you couldn't explain, the one that never left even when you forgot it was there. This return isn't easy, because remembering requires grief. You grieve the years you spent trying to be someone else. You grieve the people who loved your mask more than your truth. You grieve the self you had to hide just to be allowed in the room. But that grief is sacred. It means you're no longer pretending. It means you're no longer performing. It means you're choosing to live, not just exist. There's no final version of you, no perfect healed state, no enlightenment that removes all pain, no milestone that makes you untouchable. There's only this moment, this breath, this truth. You are not here to impress the world. You are here to embody your soul. And that soul doesn't need to become anything. It only needs to be remembered. So take off the layers, put down the masks, step out of the performance, and come back to yourself, to your laughter, to your chaos, to your beauty, to your fire, to your tears, to your enoughness. You don't have to become whole. You already are. You just forgot. And now you remember. So here you are. You didn't arrive by accident. You didn't stumble into this version of yourself, the one that knows how to breathe through pain, the one that stays present in discomfort, the one that no longer runs. You earned this. With every tear you didn't judge. With every memory you finally faced. With every moment you chose honesty over performance. This is not the end of your healing. This is the beginning of your living. Because healing was never about becoming perfect. It was never about staying calm all the time. It was never about fixing every piece of your story. It was always about presence, being with what is, staying with yourself, choosing truth over illusion. And that truth is what sets you free. You will still have days that feel heavy. You will still feel tired. You will still face parts of yourself you don't fully understand. But now you know how to stay. You know how to breathe. You know how to feel. You know how to whisper to your own spirit, I won't leave you again. Carl Jung once said, I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become. And now you are choosing. You are choosing wholeness over perfection. You are choosing truth over performance. You are choosing your own voice over the world's expectations. And most importantly, you are choosing yourself. Not the polished self, not the perfect self, not the healed self, the real one. The one that knows how to come home even after the darkest nights, the one that no longer runs. So take this moment, close your eyes, place your hand on your heart, and listen. Not for noise, not for answers, but for the quiet, steady rhythm that has been with you all along. That is the sound of a soul no longer abandoned. That is the sound of you healing. Remember it. Come back to it. Live from it. Because this is where you begin again.